I was surprised when I was looking just for background audio version of the Book of Maccabees, because it is the feast of Nicanor, which you learn about from the Book of Maccabees. And breaking news, the United States and Israel are attacking Iraq, or is it Iran? Iran, I believe. Anyways, they're doing it all at once together, and Netanyahu's announcement of this is they're calling it Lion's Roar. And right there in the first book of Maccabees, the scripture says, and they went forth like a lion, like a lion's whelp or a lion's cub. And in his announcement, Netanyahu actually used the term lion cubs for Israel's army. So that they're choosing this action on this date is really significant, because they have it asked backwards. And that's because when the one called Maccabees was fighting for Israel, his greatest enemies were the unbelieving Israelites. That's who he was fighting against. Those were the ones stirring up trouble for him. Those were the ones calling for the death of the faithful ones. So, again, attacking the wrong thing on the wrong day. So there's lots to talk about when it comes to Yom Nicanor. So it's supposed to be a day of great gladness. The man of deathly hatred conquered, and I already did a video about that. Nicanor means master of elephants, so he was the one training elephants, and if you read the Book of Maccabees, it talks about the elephants in the battles. So, day of great celebration, Sabbath, and assembly. It's also called the Eve of Mordecai's Day, but we'll see more about that when we change to that story. So the worst enemies were the unfaithful Jews. Also, the object that causes desolation from the book of Revelation. You see, the object of desolation is in the book of Maccabees. And so that's how you know what the object of desolation is, by whatever they're referring to in the book of Maccabees. I'm counting that you're going to go do your research. That's why I'm not giving you scriptures, specific scriptures and stuff. You got to go find this for yourself. So the enemy knew that the faithful Jews would be at rest on the Sabbath day, and so they purposely attacked on the Sabbath day. And that's when the one called Maccabees, he decided that even on the Sabbath day they will wage war, because it was a complete slaughter of men, women, and children, just who couldn't defend themselves. And they knew everybody would be relaxed and at rest, and they can't lift any tools. But again, here it is, and they've launched the Lion's Roar on a Sabbath. So it was like the big issue with Yeshua was, is it lawful to heal people on the Sabbath? They were complaining that he was healing people on the Sabbath, and yet they'll wage war on the Sabbath. So that's one thing that we want to, take into consideration if they're talking about, their belief and faith, which you're believing. They're supposed to cut off anybody who's not observing Torah. Like Netanyahu should not be in office. He should not be able to identify as a Jew. This is how Josephus was a Jew, a natural Jew, but he's not allowed to call himself a Jew because they cut the roots. He blasphemed, so they had to cut him off. No, you're no longer a Jew. And that's how it is similarly, that if somebody who's not biologically a Jew converts, they're considered a Jew. Well, if you convert from believing Judaism to non-believing, you're not a Jew anymore. So, again, they're fighting, they're like saying this is all a part of fulfillment, Bible they're attacking the wrong people. Also, in the book of Maccabees, around this feast of Nicanor, there was a marriage made into mourning. There were young men who they wanted to make a name for themselves, so they gathered a bunch of friends and they went off and made war when they weren't told. They weren't commanded to. They weren't observing the hierarchy. They just wanted to make a name for themselves. They died. Another one tried to do it, and he successfully killed the elephant, but he did it from underneath. The elephant fell on him and killed him. So, a bit of warning about, we may want to be eager to go out and, make a name for ourselves as a righteous one, a saint, a representative, of our Elohim. But if that's not what we're called to do, that's not what we should be doing. We're not going to end up with a name for ourselves other than being an object lesson as to what not to do. Also, the foreshadowing of the Messiah's name, because the one who brought the new altar stone, because that altar had been defiled, so they didn't know how to purify it. They wanted to wait, so they put it someplace else and brought another altar stone. And so the restorer of true worship ends up being called Yahushua or Yahusha. And so it is the Yeshua that was the Messiah was called Yahusha or Yahushua. So that is about everything that I have concerning Nicanor and Lion's Roar.